In this lecture, we'll continue developing our Cryptos token in order to have a fully compliant ERC20 token. So, we'll add another state variable. This is a two-dimensional mapping variable. This is something like a two-dimensional array. The keys are of type address and the value is another mapping. So mapping of address and uint. And this is called allowed. How does this variable look like? For example, let's suppose that the address that starts with 0x111 and so on wants to allow another address to withdraw from its own account, so from the owner account, a specific number of tokens. Then this variable will look like allowed of 0x111 and then the second address, the spender address, let's say 222 equals 100. What does it mean? This means that the owner address allows the spender address to future transfer from this address the maximum amount of 100 tokens. Okay? And then we have a function that will return the allowance of an address. We need a getter function for this variable. So let's create another function here. We'll take a look in our interface. The function is named allowance. I'll uncomment the function and here I write function allowance address. This is the token owner. Address. This is the spender or the account that will spend the tokens. This is a view function that returns an uint, so the number of tokens allowed to be spent, and return allowed of token owner and spender. This is the allowance function. Now we'll create the approve function. This function will be called by the owner, so by this address, to approve this amount to be spent by this address. So let's create another function here named approve. Okay, this function belongs to my interface, so I can uncomment the function. And now we have the spender, the first function argument, address spender, and uint value. How many tokens do I allow the spender to withdraw from my account? This is a public function and returns a boolean value of true or false. So first we require that the owner has at least this value of tokens. So here require balances of msg.sender. This is the owner because this function will be called by the owner, is greater than or equal to tokens. Let's use here tokens. Maybe it's more understandable. And we also require that tokens greater than 0. The allowance should be greater than 0. And now I'll modify this mapping variable, the allowed variable. So allowed of msg.sender and the spender equals to tokens. Return true. We can also have two functions, increase approval and decrease approval, if we want to modify this value, because this function only set the allowance for the spender and doesn't modify that value after that. For this moment, this is okay. And this function must emit an event, an approval event that is defined in the ERC20 standard. I uncomment this line, copy, and paste here. And now I emit the approval event. So here inside the approve function, before returning, I emit approval of msg.sender, spender, and tokens. Okay, this is the approve function. And the last function that must be implemented is the transfer from function. The function that transfers money from the owner account to the spender account. So I've uncommented this line, and now here inside my contract, after the approve function, here I create a function. Function transfer from address to uint, and the last argument is, let's take a look in the interface. Okay, tokens. And the function returns a Boolean value. And now the function implementation. First, we must require that the allowance of this address is greater than this value. So the spender address or the to address is allowed to transfer from this account a number of tokens greater than or equal to this value. So here I require that allowed of from and to is greater than tokens. I must also verify that the balance of the token owner is greater than the tokens that will be transferred. So require balances of from is greater than or equal to tokens. All requirements are met, and now we can modify the balances. So balances of from minus equal to tokens, and balances of to plus equal to tokens. We must also modify the allowance of this user, because if he transferred this number of tokens, next time when he comes and wants to transfer another number of tokens, he must have a lower allowance, an allowance that decreased with this value. So here I write allowed of from and to minus equal to tokens. And if the function reaches this point, I return true. Okay, this is the transfer from function. At this moment, we've implemented all functions and all events of a fully compatible and compliable ERC20 token. And our Cryptos token can be used by any compatible ERC20 wallet. In the next lecture, we'll test the allowance, approve, and transfer from functions. See you soon.